Hello and welcome back to the lecture of time series econometrics. In this lecture, we are actually going to give you an example to distinguish the AR1 and MA1 process. Now, in the previous lecture, we spoke about the AR1 process and MA1 process with an example. We simply created a white noise, and from that white noise, we build our AR1 process and our MA1 process. Now, when we see the numbers, how do we interpret the numbers? That's the question. So let me again go back to the MA1 and AR1 process that we created from the white noise. Okay, so these are the numbers we got. Now let me give you an example. Let me give you a practical example that will actually help you somehow to sort of capture the essence between the AR1 process and MA1 process difference. Okay, so let us take this example that you have returned back to campus. Okay, in the next year, not this year, in the next year after the pandemic is over. And our school is extremely generous to you, and we actually want to offer you something very nice. Okay, and say when you come back, it's summer, so what we want to offer you is ice cream. Okay, so anybody can have free ice cream basically. Okay, so in our pantry we have a full a fridge full with ice cream, and you can just come and pick it. Now you also are adults and you are quite mature, and you just don't squander the food, so you just take whatever you need. Now we don't know really how much you need. So basically you take according to your need, and your need varies. Suppose it varies with the temperature. So if it is too cold, probably or the temperature is low, you probably won't be having so much of demand. If the temperature is high, you probably have a little more demand. Okay, so which we don't know. The temperature, how the temperature will vary tomorrow, we really don't know. Now, in this situation, suppose a smart boy in our class, is given the responsibility to predict the demand, and that's basically he will construct time series of the demands of successive days, and he will use both MA1 process and AR1 process. And now how these uh, processes will differ, okay, and how we'll actually see the demands in ice cream changing. Now let us see this white noise. Basically, these values are representing the change in ice cream demand because of the temperature fluctuations. So whatever functional form they have, but we just are bothered about the change in the fluctuation in demand. Okay. Now these are the values. So say in the first day, the demand increased by say 0.25. Say let's say we say this is a liter expressed in liter, so 2.259 liter, and the next day it has decreased by 0.8718 liter. The next day it has decreased again by 0.7879 liter. Next day again decreased by 0.3443 liter, and so on. Now, when I say when a smart boy in the class actually is given the responsibility to predict the forecast of or predict the time series, I'll not use the word forecast here. Predict the time series for these different days. Take the values and create a time series. So for MA1 process, he will assume that the next day is basically there is a component of the previous day. So whatever demand change happened because of the temperature, the people who decided to say consume more or less, 90% of the people are going to maintain their choice, or you can say that the 90% of the previous choice are going to have the same effect in this period. So which means that for the first period, if the increase was 0.259 liters, so 90% of that increase will have impact in this period as well. Whereas for the third period, where the decline is by minus of 0.7879 liter, so it will only take into account the previous period, that is minus of 0.8918 liter. So that I will assume that the people who decided to go for a lesser consumption, they will maintain their choice irrespective of whether this period temperature increased or decreased. Okay, so that means it is an additional decrease that will happen because of the previous period choice, right? And that's exactly what you see in MA1 process, and so on. In the going forward, you will only take care of the people, like in MA1 process, will only assume that people in the previous period will retain their choice. 90% of the people or the 90% of the choice are going to be same. Whereas for AR1 process, things are a little different, because here what is happening is we are actually considering the cumulative effect of all the choices that are made in the previous period. So for example, in the first period, I am assuming that it is only zero point 0.9, so 90% of the people are going to retain their choice, just like MA1 process for the first and second period. There is no difference. So, in the second period, we'll see only 90% of the previous choice to be reflected upon, so which is basically the same value that we see in MA1 process. But when I go to period number 3, what is happening is I'm actually assuming that the people who decided to eat less in the eat more actually in the first period, so that decision, the some effect of the decision is still persisting. Okay, so see the difference. So here I have some uh, impact of the decision which was made in the period 1, that increase of 0.259, that effect is somewhat there. So basically, if I consider the phi operator, I will have a square of a phi value which will correspond to this the first period value. If you remember how the AR1 process is expanded, so you, for every successive period you will have a higher value of higher order value of theta. Okay, sorry, phi. Okay, so that way with more number of periods you will actually end up capturing the the all the past period values with a with a weight of a higher correspondingly higher power of theta, right? So theoretically it could be said that our AR1 process basically it absorbs shock to the infinite number of periods, but since the value of theta is less than 1, we can say that actually uh, the shock is not really that prominent. I mean, at infinity, the shock becomes 0. All right. So that's basically the difference in AR1 and MA1 process. Whereas in random walk model, we simply add up. So whatever fluctuation happened in the previous period, what I do is I simply add that fluctuation to this period fluctuation. Okay, so I add it as it is. Okay, so that's basically the difference. To conclude this lecture, so essentially what we see is the difference between all these different processes is the autocorrelation structure that we are bringing in. And that's what we started with when we spoke about from white noise we convert the white noise into different series. So we basically introduce different autocorrelation structure, right? So in AR1 process, you are basically taking into account the effect of infinite period, whereas in MA1 process, you are only taking care of only the last period. Okay, so we are basically in the next lecture we're going to see the difference between the mathematical properties of AR1 and MA1 process, and that should all give us a little more clarity about how we can construe the differences.